Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour and watched the stars through the main window. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. Jake was 32 years old and had dreamed of exploring space since he was a child. Now he commanded a crew of 28 people on humanity's first deep space mission beyond the Outer Rim. Lisa Carter sat at the navigation station, her fingers dancing across the control panel. She was 28 and one of the best navigators Earth had ever trained. Her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail, and her blue eyes focused on the star charts before her. Next to her, Ben Hughes worked at the engineering console. Ben was a tall man with dark hair and strong hands that could fix anything on the ship. He had joined the mission because he wanted to see what alien technology might look like. Dr. Amy Walker stood near the science station, studying readings from their long-range sensors. She was 30 years old with brown hair and green eyes that missed nothing. Amy had spent her whole career studying the possibility of alien life, and now she might finally meet some. The crew called her the smartest person on the ship, and Jake knew they were right. Commander Rick Davis walked up to Jake with a worried look on his face. Rick was 40 years old and had been Jake's friend since their academy days. His gray hair and serious expression made him look older than he was. Rick always worried about everything, which made him a good second in command. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the communications array," Rick said in his deep voice. "Amy thinks you should hear this." Jake followed Rick to Amy's station. The scientist looked excited and nervous at the same time. She pressed a button, and a voice filled the bridge. The voice was speaking perfect English, but there was something musical about it, like hearing someone sing while they talked. "Greetings, travelers from the blue world," the voice said. "We have waited so long for you to find us. Please, come to the coordinates we are sending. We mean you no harm. We only wish to meet the ones called humans." The crew stood in silence. For a moment, Jake felt his heart racing. This was it. This was first contact with an alien species. But something felt strange about the whole situation. How did they know English? How did they know about Earth? "Amy, can you trace where this signal is coming from?" Jake asked. Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Yes, Captain. The signal is coming from a system about 2 days away from here. There's something massive there, something that doesn't look like a planet or a star." Jake looked at the star chart Amy put on the main screen. The system showed a dying star with something huge orbiting around it. The object was 10 times bigger than any space station humans had ever built. "Captain," Lisa said from her station, "Earth Command told us not to make contact with any alien species. They said we should only observe and report back." Jake knew. Lisa was right. Their orders were clear. But as he looked at the mysterious object on the screen, he felt something pulling at him. It was like a voice in his head, calling to him across the empty space between stars. He had never felt anything like it before. "Sir, we should return to Earth immediately," Rick said. "This could be a trap. We don't know anything about these aliens or what they want." Ben looked up from his station. "But Captain, this is why we came out here, to explore and discover new things. We might never get another chance like this." Jake closed his eyes and thought about what to do. He had always trusted his instincts, and right now they were telling him to investigate. Something about the voice in the transmission felt familiar, like hearing an old friend call his name. "Set course for those coordinates," Jake said finally. "We're going to make contact." Rick shook his head. "Jake, this is against direct orders from Earth Command. They'll court-martial us when we get back." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we're 3 months away from Earth, and this might be the most important moment in human history. I'm not going to run away from it." The next 2 days passed slowly. Jake found himself standing at the bridge window more often, staring at the stars and thinking about the voice in the transmission. Sometimes he thought he could hear it calling to him, even when the communications were turned off. Amy ran every test she could think of, but the readings from the alien structure made no sense. It seemed to be made of some kind of crystal that generated its own energy. When they finally arrived at the system, the whole crew gathered on the bridge to see the alien structure. It was beautiful, beyond anything Jake had ever imagined. The entire station was made of blue and white crystal that glowed with its own light. It looked like someone had built a city inside a giant diamond. The structure was so large that the USS Endeavour looked like a small boat next to an ocean liner. "Captain, they're sending us docking instructions," Lisa said. "They want us to attach to a docking bay on the lower section." Jake felt that strange pulling sensation again, stronger this time. It was like someone was reaching across space and touching his mind. He could almost see a face in his thoughts, beautiful and sad and waiting for something. "Take us in, Jake," ordered Dot as the USS Endeavour moved toward the crystal station. Jake noticed something moving inside the transparent walls. Figures were gathering near what looked like the docking bay. They were tall and slender with skin that seemed to glow like moonlight. Their hair flowed around them as if they were underwater, and Jake could see that it sparkled with tiny points of light. The ship shuddered gently as it connected to the alien docking bay. Amy's sensors showed that the atmosphere on the other side was safe for humans to breathe. Jake felt his pulse quicken as he realized they were about to make first contact with an alien species. "Rick, Ben, Amy, you're with me," Jake said. "Lisa, keep the ship ready for immediate departure if something goes wrong." The 4 humans walked to the airlock, each wearing a sidearm and carrying recording equipment. Jake's hands were shaking slightly as he reached for the door controls. This moment would change everything for humanity, and he was the one opening the door. The airlock opened, and Jake stepped onto the alien station for the first time. The moment Jake stepped onto the alien station, he felt like he was walking into a dream. The floor beneath his feet was made of the same glowing crystal as the walls, and it felt warm even through his boots. The air smelled like flowers after rain, and there was a soft humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. A group of aliens was waiting for them in what looked like a grand hall. Jake counted 12 of them, all tall and graceful, with skin that glowed like starlight. Their eyes were larger than human eyes and seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The one in front was clearly their leader, a female who wore a crown made of living light. She stepped forward, and Jake felt that pulling sensation in his mind again, stronger than ever. Her eyes met his, and for a moment he saw flashes of images he didn't understand. Stars being born and dying, great cities rising from nothing, and always that sense of waiting for something important. "Welcome, humans from the blue world," she said, and her voice was the same musical tone from the transmission. "I am Queen Lirelei of the Zephyrian people. We have waited 50,000 years for this moment." Jake tried to speak, but found his throat dry. Behind him, he heard Amy gasp and Rick curse under his breath. Ben was already scanning the area with his equipment, his engineer's mind trying to understand how the crystal walls could generate their own light. 50,000 years? Jake finally managed to say. "You've been waiting for us specifically?" Queen Lirelei smiled, and Jake noticed that her teeth sparkled like diamonds. "Not for you personally, Captain Morrison, but for your species. We have known about humanity since your ancestors first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there." "How do you know my name?" Jake asked. "How do you know our language?" "We have been watching Earth for a very long time," the Queen replied. "We learned your languages as they developed. We watched your first steps into space. We celebrated when you reached your moon. but we could not make contact until you came to us freely." Amy stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Your Majesty, if I may ask, what exactly have you been waiting for? Why is humanity so important to you?" Queen Lyralei's expression became sad, and Jake felt an ache in his chest that wasn't his own. "Dr. Walker, your people possess something that no other species in the galaxy has ever had. Come, let me show you something that will help you understand." She led them through corridors filled with impossible beauty. The walls showed moving pictures of space and distant worlds. Jake saw planets covered in forests of silver trees, oceans that sparkled with different colors, and cities that floated among the clouds. But in many of the pictures, he also saw empty spaces where planets should have been. They entered a large room with a domed ceiling that showed the entire galaxy above them. Stars and nebulae moved slowly overhead, and Jake could see the spiral arms of the Milky Way stretching out in all directions. But there were dark spots scattered throughout, places where no light shone at all. "This is the current state of our galaxy," Queen Lyralei said, pointing to the dark areas. "Those empty spaces were once home to thriving civilizations. Billions of beings lived there, created art, loved their families, and dreamed of the future. Now there is nothing but void." Rick stepped closer to examine the display. What happened to them? War? Disease? Natural disasters? Something worse. The Queen replied. They were consumed by an entity we call the Void Collective. It moves from system to system, absorbing everything in its path. Planets, stars, entire civilizations disappear, leaving only empty space behind. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think this thing is coming for Earth?" "We know it is," Queen Lyralei said. "The Void has been moving toward your sector for the last 1,000 years. At its current pace, it will reach Earth in approximately 5 years." Ben looked up from his scanner readings. "But what does this have to do with humanity? What makes us special?" Queen Lyralei walked to the center of the room and touched a crystal panel. The galaxy display changed, showing different alien species throughout history. Jake saw beings made of energy, creatures that looked like living rocks, and others so strange he couldn't begin to describe them. "Every species in the galaxy develops along a specific evolutionary path," she explained. "We Zephyrians became masters of crystal technology and energy manipulation. The Nexus beings learned to exist as pure thought. The Verdani merged with their planet's plant life. Each species finds its strength and follows that path exclusively. But humans are different," Amy said, understanding beginning to dawn in her voice. "Yes, Dr. Walker. Humans are the first species we have ever encountered that can adapt to any situation and form genuine connections with any other intelligent life. You don't follow one evolutionary path. You create new paths wherever you go." Jake felt that strange sensation in his mind again, and suddenly he was seeing through Queen Lyralei's eyes. He experienced memories that weren't his own. He saw the Zephyrian civilization at its height, with crystal cities that stretched across entire continents and fleets of ships that could travel between stars in seconds. He felt the joy of their people as they explored the galaxy and made contact with other species. But then the memories turned dark. He saw the first reports of systems going silent. He felt the fear as the Void Collective drew closer, consuming everything in its path. He experienced the gradual decline of the Zephyrian people as they retreated to their last strongholds and waited for something that could save them. The vision ended, and Jake found himself back in the observatory room. Queen Lyralei was watching him with eyes full of hope and sorrow. "You felt our memories," she said. "No other species has ever been able to do that. It is the human gift. You can touch the mind and heart of any intelligent being and understand them completely." "I felt your pain," Jake whispered. Your people are dying. We have been dying for centuries, the Queen confirmed. Our population has fallen from billions to just a few thousand. Our technology still works, but we have lost the will to use it. We have been waiting for the species foretold in the ancient prophecy. Amy leaned forward eagerly. What prophecy? Queen Lirelei touched the crystal panel. Again, and the room filled with images of ancient texts written in symbols that seemed to shift and change as Jake watched them. Long before the Zephyrians reached the stars, we found ruins of an even older civilization, she explained. They left behind a prophecy about a young species that would emerge from a blue world. These beings would possess the power to unite all life in the galaxy and stand against the darkness that consumes worlds. Rick crossed his arms. And you think that's us? Humans? I know it is, Queen Lirelei said, looking directly at Jake. Captain Morrison, since you boarded our station, my people have begun to feel hope again for the first time in centuries. Your presence here is already healing wounds we thought would never close. Jake didn't know what to say. The weight of what she was telling him felt crushing. How could humanity possibly stand against something that had destroyed entire civilizations? How could they unite species that had never worked together before? But as he looked at Queen Lirelei, he felt that connection again. Her pain became his pain, but so did her hope. And for the first time since arriving at the station, Jake began to believe that maybe, just maybe, humans really were meant for something greater than they had ever imagined. What do you need from us? He asked. Queen Lirelei smiled, and the light in the room seemed to grow brighter. Everything, Captain Morrison. We need you to help us contact the other surviving civilizations. We need you to convince them to work together. And most importantly, we need you to help us understand how to use the gift that makes humanity special. Jake looked at his crew. Amy was practically vibrating with excitement at the scientific possibilities. Ben was already thinking about how human and Zephyrian technology might work together. Even Rick seemed to be warming up to the idea, though. He still looked worried about the danger they were all in. We'll need to contact Earth, Jake said finally. Our leaders need to know about this threat. Of course, Queen Lirelei agreed. But Captain, there is something else you should know. The Void Collective isn't just randomly destroying civilizations. It's searching for something specific, and we believe that something is humanity itself. Jake spent the next 3 days living among the Zephyrians, and each day brought new discoveries that amazed him. The Crystal Station was like a living city, with corridors that could reshape themselves and rooms that appeared when needed. The Zephyrians moved through their home like dancers, their glowing hair flowing behind them as they went about their daily lives. What surprised Jake most was how quickly he began to understand their technology and customs. When a young Zephyrian named Kettle showed him how to operate their crystal computers, Jake found himself thinking in patterns that felt completely natural. It was as if his human brain could automatically adapt any new system he encountered. Queen Lirelei had assigned him quarters near her own chambers, and Jake noticed that she seemed to grow brighter whenever he was around. Her skin would pulse with soft light, and her voice would take on musical qualities that made even simple conversations sound like songs. Other Zephyrians had begun seeking him out, just to spend time in his presence. Amy was having similar experiences in the research sections of the station. She worked alongside Zephyrian scientists to understand their crystal technology, and her presence seemed to energize the entire research team. Projects that had been stalled for decades were suddenly moving forward again. It's incredible, Jake, Amy told him during one of their daily briefings. When I work with them, it's like we share the same mind. I can see problems from their perspective, and they can understand solutions that humans would never think of on their own. We're creating new technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Ben was equally excited about his work with his Zephyrian engineers. Captain, Their crystal matrices can store 1,000 times more energy than any human battery, but they never thought to use modular designs like we do. When I showed them how we build things in sections, they redesigned their entire power grid in 2 days. Even Rick was starting to change his opinion about their situation. He had been working with Zephyrian security forces to understand the threats facing the galaxy, and his military experience, combined with their ancient knowledge, was producing impressive results. I hate to admit it, Jake, but these aliens might be right about humans, Rick said during a private conversation. I've learned more about tactical planning in 3 days than I did in 10 years at the Academy. It's like their knowledge fills in gaps I didn't even know I had. But it was Jake's relationship with Queen Lirelei that showed the true extent of the human gift. Every evening, they would meet in her private chambers to discuss the day's progress. These conversations gradually became something deeper than diplomatic meetings. During their 4th evening together, Queen Lirelei showed Jake something she had never shared with anyone else. She touched a crystal wall, and the chamber filled with memories from her childhood. Jake watched as a young Zephyrian girl played in crystal gardens that sparkled like jewels. He felt her joy as she learned to shape light with her thoughts, and her wonder as she first saw the stars. "I was born 3,000 years ago," she told him. "I have lived through the decline of my entire civilization. I have watched my people lose hope and give up on the future. Until you arrived, I had begun to believe that our prophecy was nothing but the desperate dream of a dying race." Jake reached out and took her hand without thinking. The moment their skin touched, he felt a rush of sensations that overwhelmed him. He could feel her thoughts mixing with his own, her memories becoming part of him. He experienced 3,000 years of Zephyrian history in seconds, understanding their culture and values as if he had been born among them. But more than that, he felt her emotions. The loneliness of ruling a dying people, the weight of keeping hope alive when everything seemed hopeless, and underneath it all, a love for life itself that burned as bright as the stars. "I can feel what you feel," Jake whispered, amazed by the connection between them. "And I can feel your strength," Queen Lirelei replied. "Your people are so young, but you have something we lost long ago. You believe that any problem can be solved, that any obstacle can be overcome. That belief is infectious, Jake. It spreads to everyone around you." Their connection deepened over the following days. Jake found that he could access Zephyrian technology systems simply by touching them, as if the crystal matrices recognized him as one of their own people. Queen Lirelei could understand human concepts that should have been completely foreign to her species. Together, they began working on projects that neither humans nor Zephyrians could have attempted alone. They designed new types of spacecraft that combined human adaptability with Zephyrian crystal technology. They developed communication systems that could reach across the entire galaxy in minutes instead of years. But their work was interrupted when long-range sensors detected something approaching the Zephyrian system. A massive fleet of human ships was traveling toward them at maximum speed, and their intentions were clearly hostile. "It's Admiral Kate Sullivan," Rick said grimly as he studied the sensor readings. "She commands Earth's Rapid Response Fleet. They must have been sent to bring us home." Jake felt his heart sink. He had known this moment would come eventually, but he had hoped for more time to convince Earth's leaders about the galactic threat. Admiral Sullivan was known for her aggressive tactics and her distrust of anything non-human. "How long until they arrive?" Jake asked. 6 hours, Lisa replied from the communications station. "Captain, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding that we surrender immediately and return to Earth for debriefing." Queen Lirelei entered the bridge, her usual glow dimmed with worry. "Captain Morrison, are these ships a threat to my people?" Jake wished he could give her a reassuring answer, but he knew Admiral Sullivan too well. "I don't know." "Admiral Sullivan, sees aliens as potential enemies until proven otherwise. If she thinks you're holding us against our will, she might attack. Then we must convince her that we are allies, Queen Lirelei said simply. You don't understand, Rick interrupted. Admiral Sullivan commanded the fleet that destroyed the asteroid mining facility on Titan when the workers went on strike. She doesn't negotiate with people she considers traitors, and that's exactly what she's going to think we are. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew and the Zephyrian officers, who had become their friends and partners. Amy was working beside a Zephyrian scientist to improve their sensor systems. Ben was helping crystal engineers upgrade their defensive arrays. Everyone was cooperating in ways that should have been impossible between species that had just met. There has to be a way to make her understand. Jake said. Queen Lirelei moved closer to him, and Jake felt that familiar connection spark between them. Through their bond, he could sense her accessing the vast information networks of her people. She was searching through thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, looking for some precedent that might help them. Jake, she said suddenly, her voice filled with excitement. The crystal matrix network that connects all Zephyrian stations can be modified to work with human neural patterns. If we could establish a direct communication link with Admiral Sullivan, she could experience our memories directly. She would understand the truth about the galactic threat and humanity's role in stopping it. Amy looked up from her station. That could work, Captain. If Admiral Sullivan could feel what we've felt and see what we've seen, she would have to believe us. It's worth a try, Ben agreed. But we would need to modify the communication array to interface with human brain patterns. I'm not sure we have enough time. Jake felt that familiar sensation of connection with Queen Lirelei stronger than ever before. Their minds worked together, human creativity combining with Zephyrian knowledge to solve problems at incredible speed. In minutes, they had designed modifications that would have taken weeks for either species to develop alone. We can do it, Jake said confidently. But I'll need to make the connection myself. My neural patterns are already synchronized with Zephyrian technology. Rick grabbed Jake's arm. That's insane. You're talking about letting an alien machine interface directly with your brain. We have no idea what that could do to you. We don't have a choice, Jake replied. If Admiral Sullivan attacks this station, both humans and Zephyrians will die. The galaxy will lose its best chance of stopping the Void Collective. Queen Lirelei nodded in agreement. Captain Morrison is right. This is our only hope of preventing a war between our species. As the human fleet drew closer, Jake and the combined human Zephyrian engineering teams worked frantically to modify the communication array. Time was running out, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Admiral Kate Sullivan's fleet emerged from hyperspace like angry hornets, weapons systems already charging and targeting the crystal station. Jake watched from the bridge as 30 human warships formed an attack formation around the Zephyrian structure. The largest ship, Admiral Sullivan's flagship USS Dominion, positioned itself directly in front of the station's main docking bay. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Sullivan of Earth Fleet Command, came the harsh transmission. You are harboring stolen Earth property and personnel who have violated direct orders. Surrender Captain Morrison and his crew immediately, or we will take them by force. Jake moved to the communication station, his hands shaking slightly as he activated the modified crystal array. The neural interface crown that Queen Lirelei had helped him design felt cold against his forehead, but he could already feel it connecting to his thoughts. Admiral Sullivan, this is Captain Morrison, Jake replied. I need you to listen to what I'm about to show you. The safety of Earth and every human alive depends on it. Morrison, you're under arrest for treason and violation of first contact protocols. Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled with anger. You have 30 seconds to report to my ship, or I'll blast that alien structure to pieces. Jake looked at Queen Lirelei, who nodded encouragingly. Through their connection, he could feel her lending him strength and clarity. Admiral, I'm going to share memories with you through this communication link. Please don't resist the connection. What the hell are you talking about, Morrison? Jake activated the neural interface, and suddenly his consciousness expanded beyond his own mind. He could feel Admiral Sullivan's thoughts across the void of space, her anger and confusion and fear for her crew. Gently, he began sharing the memories of everything that had happened since his arrival at the Crystal Station. Admiral Sullivan gasped as she experienced Jake's first meeting with Queen Lirelei. She felt the connection between human and Zephyrian minds, the way their thoughts could merge and enhance each other. She saw through Jake's eyes as Amy worked with alien scientists to create impossible technologies, and felt Ben's excitement as he learned to shape crystal matrices with his bare hands. But most importantly, she experienced the true scope of the threat facing the galaxy. Jake shared Queen Lirelei's memories of entire star systems being consumed by the Void Collective, civilizations that had existed for millions of years vanishing without a trace. She felt the desperate hope of the Zephyrian people as they waited for the prophesied species that could unite the galaxy against the approaching darkness. The connection lasted only a few minutes, but when it ended, both Jake and Admiral Sullivan were exhausted. Jake collapsed into his chair, his head spinning from the effort of maintaining the neural link across such a vast distance. On the main screen, he could see Admiral Sullivan sitting in her command chair, her face pale with shock. "My God," she whispered. "It's all true, isn't it? The prophecy, the Void Collective, all of it." "Yes, Admiral," Jake replied weakly. "And according to Zephyrian calculations, the Void will reach Earth in less than 5 years." Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she had experienced. When she spoke again, her voice was different, filled with the weight of understanding. "Captain Morrison, what do you need from Earthfleet?" Before Jake could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the Crystal Station. Queen Lirelei rushed to the central control panel, her skin flickering with patterns of light that Jake had never seen before. Other Zephyrians were moving frantically around the bridge, their usual graceful movements replaced by urgent efficiency. "What's happening?" Jake asked, struggling to his feet. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of our system," Queen Lirelei replied, her voice tight with fear. "The signatures match records from systems that were consumed by the Void Collective." Amy checked her instruments, her face going white as she read the data. "Captain, whatever's coming, it's huge. The energy readings are off the charts." On the main screen, the stars at the edge of the system began to flicker and dim. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting, creating dark patches where no light could escape. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what they were seeing. "It's a Void scout force," Queen Lirelei said grimly. "They must have detected the human ships entering our system. The Void knows that humanity has made contact with other species." Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled over the communication system. "All ships. This is Admiral Sullivan. Prepare for immediate combat operations. We have hostiles inbound." "Admiral, wait," Jake said urgently. "Your weapons won't work against the Void ships. They absorb energy and use it to grow stronger." "Then, what do you suggest, Captain?" Jake looked at Queen Lirelei, feeling their mental connection strengthen as they faced the crisis together. Through their bond, he could access the accumulated knowledge of 50,000 years of Zephyrian civilization. He saw ancient battles against the Void, weapons that had failed, and defenses that had been overwhelmed. But he also saw something else. Deep in the crystal matrix networks, there were defensive systems that the Zephyrians had never been able to activate. The systems required a type of neural pattern that no Zephyrian possessed, but that every human brain could generate. Naturally. Queen Lirelei, the ancient defense network, Jake said excitedly. Can we activate it with human neural patterns? Her eyes widened with understanding. Yes, but it would require multiple humans working in perfect synchronization with our crystal. Matrices. The mental strain could be deadly. We have to try, Jake said. It's our only chance. Admiral Sullivan's ships were already moving into defensive positions around the crystal station when the first Void Scouts emerged from the dark patches in space. Jake had seen images of them in Zephyrian records, but seeing them in person was far more terrifying. They looked like massive black insects with wings made of pure darkness. Where they moved, space itself seemed to die, leaving empty voids that hurt to look at. All human ships. This is Captain Morrison. Jake broadcast on all frequencies. I need volunteers to link their minds with Zephyrian technology. It's dangerous, but it's the only way to activate their defensive systems. Morrison, this is Admiral. Sullivan, what exactly are you asking my people to do? Interface directly with alien neural networks, Jake replied honestly. Some of you might not survive the process, but if we don't try, the void will consume this entire system, and then continue on to Earth. There was a pause, and Admiral Sullivan's voice came back, firm with resolve. All ship commanders, prepare volunteer crews for neural interface operations. Transfer to the Crystal Station immediately. As human shuttles began docking with the Zephyrian Station, Jake worked with Queen Lirelei to prepare the ancient defense systems. The crystal networks throughout the station came alive with new patterns of light as they modified the interfaces for human brain patterns. Ben volunteered to be the first test subject, connecting his mind to the station's power grid. The moment the neural crown touched his head, his eyes rolled back, and his body went rigid. For a terrifying moment, Jake thought they had killed him. Then Ben's voice echoed through the station's communication system, multiplied and enhanced by the crystal. Matrices. It works, Ben said, his mental voice filled with wonder. I can feel the entire station. I can control power flow to every system simultaneously. More volunteers followed, linking their minds to different sections of the defensive network. Amy connected to the sensor arrays, expanding their range to cover the entire star system. Rick interfaced with the weapons control systems, learning to fire energy beams that could actually damage void ships. But it was Jake's connection with Queen Lirelei that made everything possible. Their bonded minds served as the central coordination node, linking human creativity with Zephyrian knowledge and technology. Together, they could process information and make decisions faster than any computer system ever built. The Void Scouts attacked in waves, their dark ships moving through space like living nightmares. But for the first time in galactic history, they encountered a defense that could hurt them. The combined human Zephyrian network fought back with weapons that adapted in real time, energy patterns that the Void could not absorb, and coordination that no single species could have achieved. When the last Void Scout was destroyed, Jake collapsed from exhaustion. The neural interface had pushed his mind far beyond its normal limits, and he could feel the strain in every thought. But they had won. They had proven that humans and aliens could work together to stand against the darkness. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication system, filled with amazement and respect. Captain Morrison, I've never seen anything like that. Your people and the aliens fought as if they shared the same mind. Because we did, Admiral. Jake replied weakly. That's the human gift. We can connect with any intelligent species and become stronger together than either of us could be alone. Queen Lirelei helped Jake to his feet, her touch sending healing energy through their mental bond. The scout force will report back to the main Void fleet, she warned. They know now that humans have made contact with other species. They will come in greater numbers. Then we'll need more allies, Admiral Sullivan said. Captain Morrison, How many other alien civilizations are out there? Jake looked at the star charts surrounding them, seeing the galaxy with new understanding. Through his connection with Queen Lirelei, he could sense the presence of dozens of species hiding in distant systems, all waiting for someone to unite them against the void. Enough to make a difference, Admiral, Jake said. Enough to save the galaxy. 6 months later, Jake stood in the command center of the largest space station ever built, watching as ships from dozens of different species arrived to join the growing alliance. The station itself was a marvel of combined technology, with human modular design supporting Zephyrian crystal matrices, Nexus energy cores, and Verdani bioorganic systems all working together in perfect harmony. The response to Jake's galaxy-wide broadcast had exceeded everyone's expectations. Species that had hidden for centuries emerged from their strongholds, drawn by the hope that humanity represented. The crystalline beings of Nexus Prime brought their mastery of energy manipulation. The plant-like Verdani contributed their ability to grow living ships that could repair themselves. The Luminari, beings made of pure light, offered their knowledge of faster-than-light travel. Each species brought their own unique gifts, but it was humanity's ability to connect and coordinate that made the alliance possible. Human crew members served on every alien ship, their minds linked to alien systems through modified neural interfaces. In return, alien specialists worked aboard human vessels, sharing knowledge that advanced both technologies by centuries. Admiral Sullivan had become Jake's most trusted ally, leading the combined military forces with a skill that impressed even the ancient Zephyrian generals. She stood beside him now, watching the tactical displays that showed the approaching Void Fleet. "They're 3 days out from the Zephyrian system," she reported. "Our scouts estimate over 10,000 ships, plus support vessels we can't even classify." "How many do we have?" Jake asked. 8,000 ships from 47 different species. Admiral Sullivan replied, "It should be enough if your plan works." Jake nodded, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The plan was ambitious beyond anything ever attempted in galactic history. It required perfect coordination between species that had never worked together, using technologies that had never been combined, all focused through human neural patterns that could barely handle the strained-out Queen Lirelei entered the command center, her skin glowing brighter than Jake had ever seen it. Over the past months, their connection had deepened until they could communicate without words, sharing thoughts and emotions as naturally as breathing. Through their bond, Jake had learned to think like a Zephyrian, while Lirelei had gained human intuition and adaptability. "The weapon is ready," she announced, her musical voice carrying to every corner of the command center. All crystal matrices are synchronized and standing by for activation. The weapon she referred to was the ultimate secret of the first galactic civilization, hidden in the depths of the ancient Zephyrian archives. It was not a destroyer, but a transformer, capable of restoring absorbed consciousness and freeing entire civilizations from the void's control. But it required a human mind to guide it, specifically one bonded with a Zephyrian queen. Amy approached them, her excitement barely contained despite the danger they all faced. "Jake, the quantum resonance patterns are perfect. Every species in the Alliance is contributing their unique energy signatures to the weapon matrix. When we fire this thing, it's going to carry the combined essence of nearly 50 different civilizations." Ben joined them from the engineering station, his hands still glowing with residual crystal energy from interfacing with the station's power systems. "Captain, I've never seen anything like what we've built here. Human engineering principles, combined with alien technologies that shouldn't even be possible. This station could probably power an entire solar system." Rick walked up with a grim expression on his weathered face. "Jake, incoming transmission from the Void Fleet. They want to talk." Jake felt surprise ripple through his connection with Queen Lirelei. In 50,000 years of Zephyrian records, the Void Collective had never attempted to communicate with its intended victims. "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen filled with an image that made everyone in the command center step back in horror. The being speaking for the Void was a twisted amalgamation of dozens of different species, their features blended together in a nightmare of flesh and metal and energy. When it spoke, Jake could hear the voices of countless absorbed civilizations crying out in unison. "Humans of the blue world," the creature said, its voice like the sound of stars dying. "You have something that belongs to us. Surrender now, and we will make your absorption quick and painless." Jake stepped forward, feeling the strength of every human and alien mind connected to the station flowing through him. "We don't belong to anyone, and we're not going to let you consume any more civilizations." A Void creature laughed, a sound that made the crystal walls of the station vibrate with sympathetic resonance. "You understand nothing, little human. We are not destroyers. We are preservers. Every consciousness we absorb becomes part of our eternal collective. Death and suffering end when all life joins with us." "That's not life," Jake replied firmly. "That's imprisonment. Those voices I hear screaming in your transmission aren't grateful. They're begging to be free." "Freedom is an illusion," the creature responded. "Separate existence leads only to conflict and pain. Unity through absorption is the only path to true peace." Jake felt Queen Lyralei's hand slip into his, their connection deepening as they faced the enemy together. Through their bond, he could sense the fear and determination of every being in the Alliance fleet. Humans, Zephyrians, Nexus crystals, Vardani plant mines, luminary energy patterns, and dozens of other species all linked together in a network of mutual support and shared purpose. "You're wrong," Jake said, squeezing Lyralei's hand. "Unity doesn't require absorption. Different species can work together while remaining themselves. We're proof of that." The Void creature's expression shifted, showing something that might have been confusion. "Impossible. We have absorbed 1,000,000 civilizations. None have ever successfully cooperated with other species on this scale." "Because none of them had humans," Admiral Sullivan interjected, stepping up beside Jake. "Humans don't just cooperate with aliens. We make them better, and they make us better in return." The transmission ended abruptly, and long-range sensors immediately detected the Void fleet accelerating toward them. The final battle was about to begin. Jake moved to the central control platform, where neural interface crowns waited for him and Queen Lyralei. Around the command center, human officers took their positions at stations designed for a dozen different species. Each human mind would serve as a bridge, allowing alien technologies to work together in ways that should have been impossible. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison," Jake broadcast to the entire Alliance fleet. "Remember, we're not just fighting for our own species today. We're fighting for the right of all intelligent life to exist freely in this universe." The battle began when the first Void ships entered the system, their dark hulls absorbing light and energy from everything around them. The Alliance fleet met them with weapons that had never been combined before. Human tactical doctrine enhanced by Zephyrian energy manipulation and Nexus crystalline focusing. But it was the ancient weapon that would determine the outcome. Jake and Queen Lyralei linked their minds through the neural interfaces, becoming the focusing lens for the combined power of 47 different civilizations. Through their connection, Jake could feel the unique essence of every species in the Alliance, their hopes and dreams and determination flowing through him like a river of living light. The weapon fired, sending a pulse of pure creative energy toward the heart of the Void fleet. But instead of destroying the enemy ships, the energy began transforming them. The dark hulls cracked open like eggs, revealing the trapped consciousness of absorbed civilizations. Millions of beings who had been imprisoned for centuries suddenly found themselves free. The effect spread through the entire Void fleet like a wave, each transformed ship adding its own energy to the liberation pulse. Species that had been absorbed thousands of years ago remembered their own names and cultures. The Void Collective didn't die. It simply stopped being collective, becoming millions of individual beings. Again, Jake collapsed from the neural strain, but through his fading consciousness, he could feel the joy of countless liberated minds. Queen Lirelei caught him as he fell, her own energy spent, but her spirit blazing with triumph. When Jake finally awakened 3 days later, Queen Lirelei was sitting beside his medical bed, her hand resting gently on his arm. Through their connection, he could feel her relief and love flowing into him like healing energy. "How many?" he asked weakly. "Over 6 million species have been restored to independence," she replied, her voice filled with wonder. "Some of them had been absorbed so long ago that we thought they were myths. The galaxy is alive again, Jake. Truly alive." Jake sat up slowly, looking out the medical bay window at the impossible sight beyond. Hundreds of different types of ships filled the space around the station, each one representing a species that had been given a second chance at freedom. Humans were already moving between the vessels, helping coordinate relief efforts and establishing communication networks. "What happens now?" Jake asked. Queen Lirelei smiled, her skin glowing with happiness. "Now we build something that has never existed before. A true galactic community where every species contributes their gifts while remaining themselves. And it will all be guided by the human gift for connection and understanding." Jake nodded, feeling the weight and wonder of humanity's new role in the galaxy. They had come to the stars as explorers and discoverers, but they had found their true purpose as bridges between different forms of life, making possible cooperation and understanding that had never existed before. Through the window, Jake could see human ships launching toward distant systems, carrying volunteers who would help other species rebuild their civilizations. Each ship carried the promise that no species would ever have to face the darkness alone again. The age of humanity had begun, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the connectors who would help every form of intelligent life reach its full potential. And at the center of it all, a human captain and an alien queen worked together to build a future where unity and diversity could coexist in perfect harmony.